He's been speaking at various meetings and talking about matters democracy, preparations for the election, readiness to accept results. But first, he has also been meeting with the diaspora community. Listen to what he said while in the US.
Realize the critical position you play in our economy, but we also realize that you cannot be in Kenya to be able to take care of your investments. And therefore, specific packages are going to be made so that you can play your role and your contribution to the economy of our country can also be meaningful to both yourselves and the people back at home. We didn't have to carry the hustlers from Nairobi because there are already plenty in the US. On the ballot is whether we continue trickle down that creates exclusion or we engage in bottom up that creates inclusion. These are the reasons why we believe that we have an opportunity to work with the diaspora to fashion a Kenya that leaves nobody behind and a Kenya that is inclusive both politically and economically.
That is the Deputy President. Of course, the diaspora community has about 7,352 registered voters as per the updated numbers of IBC. Recently, they had the registration of those numbers, and I think they were able to get nearly 3,000 new voters. The figure is about 2,959. And so he's been appealing to those, but also speaking on several occasions. We'll be listening to some of those voices. But let me begin with you again, Haman. When you look at what the Deputy President has been saying, also raising claims of rigging, that the opposition is a puppet in government and the President is a refugee in the opposition, what are we dealing with some 5 months to the general election?
Well, the situation is not very good, and I don't think any country would want to find itself in a situation where the top leadership of the country is, operating as cross-purpose, getting to a point where the president and his deputy are really behaving badly and saying things they shouldn't be saying because they represent us, and the president is a symbol of whatever it is we are. So that's a very bad situation. For Ruto in the States, I think many things come out. I think he didn't have very good advisors. Caleb Kostani here is sleeping on his job because it shows Ruto has a long way to go to get international networks. Without international networks, even becoming president of a country is very difficult.
What gives the indication he doesn't have them?
But you can see where the low-key engagements, those engagements are for somebody junior like Ababu Namwamba traveling out of the country. When people like Uhuru or Raila go to the States, you can see the kind of engagements they have, the kind of people they meet, the kind of issues they discuss, and with who. Secondly, you say the kind of things Ruto is saying from America. One, we feel embarrassed because of what the Deputy President is saying, because he's our Deputy President. Two, he's also embarrassing himself. You cannot go to a foreign country and say the sort of things Deputy President is saying about his own country and his president and his government. What is even worse, and I think Caleb Kostani, you'll buy me tea after this, because you have to inform Ruto this. You see, you are talking to Americans, Sam Gituko. These are people who, if Sam Gituko, Vice President to President Manyora, if even by a slip of the tongue, just a slip of the tongue, you said something to remotely suggest you have doubts about my abilities as a president. Remotely. Yeah. Within an hour, you'll have resigned. Those are the people you are talking to. So when Ruto is talking, they wonder, what's wrong with these people? Are these really human? These are how can a deputy president, serving as deputy, say the sort of things, including not just that the government is planning to rig elections, but that the government is stealing money by putting, he's very categorical that government has even set so much money, like 100 billion, put somewhere where there's no oversight so that the same government can go steal it. And those things are very good. They should come from Opio and I. They shouldn't come from the deputy president. That's why I kept saying, and Caleb, you remember, I've said this repeatedly, the best thing for Ruto to have done would have been to resign. You know, when you resign, now you say those things. Wazungu wanakuangalia. You know, that's where they have reached. They have reached that level where they have values. There are certain things you can't say as the deputy president sitting, serving deputy president, speaking against your country, and you are talking to Wazungu. They think you are crazy.
Even when from his perspective, they are true.
They don't have to be true. They don't even have to be anything. You just can't say that. This is a civilized society where it is expected a deputy president is loyal to the president. Loyal. Number one, loyal.
Regardless of the
Yes, regardless. The moment you find it's no longer tenable for you to work under Opio and I as your president, you walk out. Then you say everything you want to say. But I'm saying it's not a question of the merit of the things he's saying. It is who is saying them and who is the audience. The audience are sort of people where even the slightest difference between a vice president and the vice president will walk out. That's the kind of information I'm...
And Caleb, when this was being planned, what was the intention? I mean, you would know. What was the intention of this visit, and are you on course?
Well, Sam, it is actually sad to listen to how Manyora is taking the deputy president's trip very casually. And for some of us who work very closely with the deputy president, and it's in the open, that the deputy president has not been out of this country since 2018 on any official government trip, because it was designed so by his boss, the president, that Ruto shouldn't have any international engagements. We even remember very recently the trip to Uganda that caused a lot of mayhem.
How did the president do that?
Well, the deputy president, for him to travel, he requires permission from the president. I remember I went with him to London in 2018, and he was hardly there for 3 days, because when we got to London, he was told you have to come back, because the president is leaving for a AU conference in Ethiopia, and the constitution doesn't allow both of you to be out of the country. So we had to cut short his program for him to return.
You said that was in 2018?
2018. 2018.
Which month?
I don't have the exact month, but it was 2018 definitely, because I traveled with him.
He was on
an official trip, and he was supposed to go and give a lecture at some university. In fact, we sat down when we just arrived. Immediately we arrived at the hotel. Then we started planning on how he should come back and how we would cut his program, because he was required to come back.
Was it deliberate?
It was deliberate. It was deliberate. It was absolutely deliberate.
Was it a new revelation or realization that the president needed to be at the AU?
It cannot be. The president's diary is not planned 3 days to an occasion.
Or he had traveled without clearance?
No, he had traveled. Ruto would never travel without clearance. He traveled with clearance, but immediately we got there, he was told, you have to come back.
And so you said that it was designed that he should never get an opportunity to have international engagement. I'm just wondering, how so?
Sam, when you look at other countries, and when you look at the deputy president is the deputy president, and actually does what is delegated to him by the president as per the constitution. But we have seen that he has been sidestepped since the handshake period, and other people, even junior people like Matiang'i, are sent to deliver messages to other presidents and all, and that is not a problem. But I think the Manyora and his team are so disturbed by this trip, such that now they want to downplay it, that Ruto went and met some junior people. For us, it really doesn't matter who we meet. It is the message that we carry. It is the message that we carry. And for us, if we meet junior people, we are people from we are of the bottom-up model. If we meet junior people,
your fellow hustlers.
We shall climb to the top. Eventually, we shall meet the heads of state. What is very important about the deputy president's trip is the message. Who has he met, and what is the message that he has given, especially to the Kenyans living in the diaspora? I don't think any other leader has made a trip abroad and given the kind of engagement the deputy president has given and attention to the Kenyans in the diaspora, who contribute a lot to the economy, stability of the economy of this country, yet they don't get enough recognition. there's been a lot of noise. Why would the deputy president go and talk about rigging of elections? The rigging claims came from none other than a senior campaigner of the president's project, Raila Odinga, Sabina Chege, when she said, we stole an election in 2017, and at Hapa we know we're going to do it. So the deputy president was referring to an allegation that had been made by a
but Caleb, the deputy president is on record saying that Sabina Chege is speaking out of tune because that is not something that happened in 2013 or even 2017. So if he goes ahead to dismiss such kind of claims, when he speaks to the international audience and says, actually, let's just listen to what he said.
Looking forward to the partnership of friends and people of goodwill, and America has always been a partner and a friend, and has stood with us during the good and the bad times, always in Kenya. And together with other members of the international community, we are looking forward to working together in that endeavor.
Well, that doesn't exactly speak about the specific question of rigging claims. We'll be sure to get it as soon as we can. But Caleb, when the deputy president raises such claims, can you really say it's the same as Sabina Chege? Because...
Well, you know, what has been happening in this country is out there in the open. And nobody in this room can say they do not know what has been happening. And rigging of election is not basically stealing the actual vote. The intimidation towards the election period has already begun. We have seen a lot of activities that have been geared up, and I want to say here categorically that we thank IEBC for having stayed independent, because you remember there was a certain team where Matiang'i was sitting in and the CS Musheru, who have already declared support for another presidential candidate, and they were saying they were sitting in a committee that was planning elections, and they had even roped in the Chief Justice. We made noise. We got some unfavorable replies from them, but we thank the IEBC chairman because he saw the danger in him being involved with people who have already declared support for a certain presidential candidate, and he pulled out of that election planning committee meeting. But you see, let us not try and say that the deputy president shouldn't have raised that issue. It is right for him to raise the issue. He was in the U.S. The U.S. is the home of democracy. The people in the U.S. have this feeling whereby they believe in free and fair election. And we know this government does not want to listen to anybody. And they see the way the body language and the way they are behaving is that they are ready to do anything at all costs to ensure the president's project becomes the next president. So it is important that you voice out. Where I come from, and the Kalenjin community, they say, once you speak out, even if nobody hears, the walls and the birds would have heard you. So I think it's now on high alert that this election is being monitored. And you know, when we speak and when Manyora speaks here, let them not take the U.S. as just any casual country. The U.S. have their intelligence network. They know everything that is happening in Kenya. They know they do their opinion poll, and the opinion poll is quite there in the open. The deputy president is the front runner. So they know that the chances are very high of William Ruto becoming the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. So I think it is good that he made those remarks so that everybody knows that we are watching. And I want to assure Kenyans that we, as the people of the Hustler Nation and in UDA with ANC and with Ford Kenya, our Ford Kenya partners, and others who will be joining us in a few weeks, in a few days when the deputy president is back, we are going to also ensure that we protect our vote.
Okay. If you look at page 6 of the Standard, you see Ruto, Raila's switched political roles, reveal shifting alliances, and you see Raila Odinga with Kojo Annan and Shamit Annan, the one-time Uhuru critic, has turned friend, edging out the deputy president. Then the deputy president arrives at Heathrow Airport in London. With him is Kenya's High Commissioner to the UK, Manoa Esipisu. And there's an insinuation on the Standard of how roles have changed, that the former Prime Minister is the one who used to criticize the authorities here in Kenya, appealing to the foreign partners, but now it appears it's the other way around, being done by the Deputy President. I mean, what do you make of this conversation, Honorable Or you and I?
And Sam, I hope you'll give me enough time, because I've seen my friend speaking as if it's a monologue. You know, Sam, first and foremost, we need to ask ourselves, what was this trip made by the Deputy President to the US? Or that he's making to the UK now, and I hear also to Qatar. Was it an official government business trip, or was it a private trip? That answer hasn't come through, if you ask me. The only thing I heard was that he was cleared by the Foreign Affairs Ministry. But even if he went out as the UDA candidate, he still remains the Deputy President, at least until he resigns. Because, you know, we have got no way of sacking him. The president can't sack him under the new constitution in this position.
You were to bring a vote of no confidence.
But then, Sam, you know, Kenya is not just any other country. Kenya, first and foremost, is currently an permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations, which is headquartered in the US. Kenya is a serious strategic country in the region for the US and other countries in the West. And therefore, when a deputy president of Kenya, in fact, the US has got the biggest embassy in this country, in the region. When a deputy president of Kenya goes to the US, you would expect that, first and foremost, he would meet people who are of the same level as him. I would have expected Deputy President William Ruto to perhaps meet with the Vice President Kamala Harris. That never happened. What we saw is him meeting some very, very nondescript persons.
But this is...
Including, by the way...
This is not an official visit.
We don't know it. Nobody has told us what was this trip about. Was it official or private? But even if it was private, he remains the Deputy President. That's my point, Sam. Yes. And you see the kind of people he has met. In fact, at one point he was hosted by the chairman of a committee in the Congress. I think an acting chairman, somebody even beneath me as the chairman of PAC. You know, PAC is a very powerful committee in the National Assembly. Okay, worldwide, really. Yes. So, and then some other assistant, something for African affairs. So, but what he said there, of course, has been, explained very well by Homan Manyora, was totally embarrassing. If, for instance, it was Raila Odinga, and Raila Odinga has established these networks over the years, not through support of anybody, or any president. In fact, whenever he goes out, presidents and prime ministers fall over themselves trying to get his attention. In fact, when he went to the US while he was prime minister, he met the president, then Barack Obama. That is how serious it is to represent a country.
But that was an official visit, Honorable Pio.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When you go out there and you are holding a serious national office, such as a DP or prime minister of a country as serious such as Kenya, you must draw attention from the powers that be in those countries. So in my view, this trip to the US and the ongoing trip to UK and elsewhere is a total letdown to the country called Kenya. Secondly, is the outbursts that have come out of William Ruto while in the US and now obviously in the UK. William Ruto is on record saying that there is no person on earth who can dare steal his election victory, if ever it comes. So when did things change for him to start crying or lamenting about a possible rigging of an election, which he had convinced everybody who cares to listen that he is in full control of? So that is hypocrisy. That is hypocrisy, and actually it paints the country in very bad light. And in other jurisdictions, he wouldn't have come back and stayed on as deputy president.
Well,
totally embarrassing, yes.
Speaker,
for somebody of that stature to go out and engage in things which could actually amount to treason. Yes, when you disparage your country.
How does it amount to treason?
If he was in the opposition, he would be excused to say those things he was saying. No, but by virtue of the fact that...
What's treasonous in what he has said?
He is casting doubt in the institutions of the country, first and foremost. He's projecting the country negatively before the whole world. What can be more reasonable than that, Sam Gituku?
Yeah.
The IBC, which is in charge of elections, I've had a chance last week or so to engage with the CEO doing my normal parliamentary work as chair of PAC. I've got more than enough confidence that despite the challenges they're facing, they are basically in charge of the game. And they are likely to deliver a credible election. So it is upon the deputy president to give that confidence, not only to Kenyans, but also to the world. Okay?
Well,
If I get to Speaker here, I'm still struck because you used a heavy word, treason, which is defined in law in the penal code, which I'm trying to trace that particular section.
Based on what the DP said,
and I'm just
somebody swearing themselves in. Which one is treasonable?
Actually,
just hold on. Let's deal with what Honorable Pio and I has said. What is treasonous in what the DP has said?
You know, Sam, leave legalese aside. What he did and said out there amounts to treason in the sense that he is basically casting aspersions. He's casting the country in bad light. He's basically expressing lack of confidence. In other words, if it were him, if it was within ability, the country's political setup would have been overthrown so that a new order can come in. That is what he's saying to do.
Because Penal Code Section 40 defines treason, any person who owing allegiance to the Republic in Kenya or elsewhere compasses, imagines, invents, devices, or intends the death and maiming or wounding of the imprisonment or restraint of the president, or the deposing by unlawful means of the president from his position as president, the overthrow by unlawful means of the government, expresses, utters, or declares any such compassings, imaginations, inventions, devices, or intentions by publishing any printing or writing, or by any overt or deed. I mean, has he said anything that offends?
When you go out there and say that the country is budgeting corruption,
but
that's a very serious thing.
Treason is specific.
That is a very serious thing.
Of the head of state.
I have told you in my interpretation, and you know, Sham, unlike you, I've studied some law. Yes.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yes. So I'm telling you.
You might be an authority.
So what I'm telling you is that what he did there and said out there amounts to treason. And in my view, he needs to come back and apologize to Kenyans.
Well, I think...
Speaker is a lawyer here. Help me.
I don't know how much law Honorable Andai has done.
Is it some bit of law?
Serious law.
Must be a diploma.
No. Serious law.
because what you have described as treasonable, Honorable Andai, really is what Raila Odinga did by swearing himself in. And I know you are really trying to get a draw whereby William Ruto can be associated to treason. But what Raila Odinga was actually did in when he saw himself in, and also what is alleged he did in some time back in 1982. Really, that's where you can take the issue of treason. But having said that, I'm also a graduate in matters diplomacy and international law. And so when I speak here, I will be speaking authoritatively.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's the point.
And indeed, I would like to first advise Honorable Andai, some of the comments he has actually said in this show might make him an a letter from the embassy, the foreign mission from in the US, I mean the embassy here in Kenya. Because when you say the person at the caliber of an assistant secretary of state in America is a not script, what are you saying? That's disparaging an officer of a foreign government.
But Speaker, what do you make of that visit itself, the engagements that the DP has had?
It's important, first of all, to put that in point,
yes,
because I would want...
I think you've done...
I actually would want him to correct that, so that, first of all, we are not disparaging other governments in other countries, because the officials of other governments, really, are senior people who ought to be respected, and particularly from a member of parliament in Kenya. And I want to say that I like how the deputy president has structured his approach to campaigns. Because if you look at the way he started right from the word go, he has had the arrangement where he has been engaging with people one-on-one in smaller groups. And now he has also had a lot of visits and inroads to the villages and to the upcountry and to the whole republic, in whichever corner you look at it. The deputy president has also had town hall meetings. Yeah. Then he has also had now engagements with people in Mashinani, kind of trying to come up with an economic blueprint on how he's going to be fulfilling his promises when he becomes president. Now, the deputy president has again now started on another mission of engaging the international community. So you see a very structured man. You see a man who understands what he's doing. You see a man who is on a mission which is very serious. And what my friend here has talked about, that the Deputy President said that he is in charge and his presidency cannot be rigged. I mean, that is what he said. And indeed, that's what we all hold, that the election will not be rigged and it must not be rigged. But again, that doesn't mean that you go and sleep. As a Deputy President and also as a contender in this election, you must do whatever it takes to ensure that you prevent any kind of thinking of rigging, and also stop even the coordinated and structured rigging that has started now or even before. And that is particularly what he's doing. And when he's doing that, you can now understand why the people from the what do you call that coalition? Not the hustler. Yeah, the people from his coalition. you know, sometimes I forget. It has not sunk yet. Yawezekana. Oh, I don't know. But this
I know what you're doing.
You can understand. You can understand why they are so bitter about this, and they are very emotional about this visit, because they can see this guy is plugging in every other corner, every other party is plugging in, is filling all the gaps, and. But they have not.
The question I'm asking,
yes.
You've done well in articulating that.
Yeah.
But how does that foreign mission, the messages you've had, how does it help Kenya and his campaign, or are there things behind the scenes that you're not seeing?
First, he's calling onto the international community to have attention in what is happening in Kenya. Again, he's also campaigning with diaspora voters who have also now registered. They are also voters here in Kenya. And by the way, I would also want to point out, Professor Manyora, that because I have interacted a lot with Americans, sometimes they really admire sometimes the way we do things. Because having a person at the caliber of a deputy president who challenges his own government is something that kind of brings out the freedoms that we also now enjoy in Kenya, and also brings out the truthfulness and the candidness that we also have. Because as much as we are saying that you need to be loyal, you can be loyal blindly. And I would like to challenge my friend here, Honorable Adai, here to come out and say something that our Deputy President has said in America that is not true. You know, those things that he has said, they are treasonable. They are all true. I mean, there are things that he is saying that are true. And someone being true to himself, really, and saying what is true is something that needs to be applauded. It's boldness, it's courage to really confront the ills and the evils that we have in our country. And so the whole perspective of this visit in America is something that is very important, and also in the UK is something that is very important to our country, and at the stage where we are now, as we near the election period, it's something that is going to help us now to also attract also other international players, and we're going to have people who are going to be interested now in whatever is happening. And it's also important for linkages. As a deputy president, you saw him engaging also with investors. You also saw him engaging with people who have the capacity to also create markets for our goods and our stuff from
he
the
effectively
Republic
do
of Kenya.
that without the proper structure that guides international relations between Kenya and those other countries? I
mean, I have seen, whenever he gets into those countries, I've also seen him being accompanied or even being received by our ambassadors in those foreign countries. And at the level where he's
in the person of the deputy president,
yes,
obviously you'd expect that to happen.
Indeed.
But for him to engage with the foreign governments, is that possible now, or it has to follow the usual cycle through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or maybe through the diplomat number one, who should be the president?
In politics,
or it's a promise for the future?
No, in politics, everything you do through lobbying and through creating awareness. So you lobby, and there's no right time to lobby. You lobby now, and you make those linkages now, and when you become president, you now link to those linkages that you have actually created at this particular moment. It only shows that the deputy president is like what we say, a bright student who puts their eyes ahead. I mean, you look ahead and you look into the future, and so those linkages are very important. And it means that, for example, when we talk about the guaranteed minimum returns for coffee, he's already looking for that market. And when we come now to say that we are going to pay you as a farmer in Kenya at maybe, let's say, 200 Kenya shillings before we even export the coffee, we already know, we have talked with people where this coffee is going.
Let's listen to some leaders of Azimio la Umoja movement. That's the name you're looking for?
Yeah.
Azimio la Umoja?
It's terrified mentioning Azimio.
Yeah.
Let's listen
It's terrified.
That one.
to what they
That one.
the dream of William Ruto.
Tumeona naibu rais amechukua ndege hapa akaenda Amerika. Mimi atena ameenda Amerika kuona White House. Jameni, si mkemwambia tu kuna White House hapa, aende hapa apigwe picha hapa.
Umeona jamaa amesafiri ameenda Amerika. Ameenda kulia kwa wazungu. Ati analia, oh, baba mzungu, watu wataka kuiba kura yangu. Sijui hakuna kitu mzungu anasaidia wewe naye. Rudi hapa Machakos, kura iko hapa Machakos.
Anasema yeye kazi yake ni kutetea vijana wa bodaboda, mama mboga, pia na watu wa jua kali. Lakini niliangalia katika msafara wake wale watu wamebeba kwenda Marekani, hajabeba bodaboda, hajabeba hata mama mboga.
Okay, so that's what they're saying, and that's politics. But Haman, as you exit from this topic, is there any efficiency or such kind of lobbying, engaging with the international world? Does it help anything? Because Raila Odinga has done it before. William Ruto is doing it now. What value does it add?
Before we look for the value, if there's any, John, my son, is a lawyer, and he knows law is about interpretation most of the time.
Yes.
And therefore, when Opio and I, you must buy me tea, because I just want to defend you now. Are you going to buy tea?
more than tea, Haman.
What Ruto has said can be interpreted by lawyers to mean it's treason. What is treason?
Correct.
How exactly?
Two things. One is to imagine the death of a president, to plan and what have you. But the bottom line is to overthrow through unlawful means a government. If you look at somebody saying Uhuru perhaps has overturned the Constitution,
Yes.
because the Constitution then is on the ballot under the president.
His word was democracy.
Democracy.
Democracy, that's what it is. Democracy. What is the difference? Democracy is about forcing Kenyans to do certain things.
Professor Manyora has become a politician.
Let me finish. I'm just being a lawyer now. I'm a lawyer, please. This is my day in court. Give it to me. Let me do it. So, then you are the deputy president. Now, a sharp lawyer like Orengo is now in court and is trying to prosecute the case. What was your intention? Americans don't vote in Kenya, and therefore, if Uhuru is bad and has done all those bad things, you cannot remove Uhuru using an American vote.
Yes.
But you can use the Americans to overthrow the Kenyan government.
Yes.
And since history is full of those things which are open, including documentaries made by Americans themselves, all the way from Congo, Lumumba, and the rest, it is not to be imagining too much that a foreign country,
suggest the removal from office of President Kenyatta?
I'm saying if you are the deputy president, I'm saying deputy president,
Yes.
and you are canvassing those kind of things
Yes.
to a foreign country that has the history of interfering in the democracy of other countries across the world, documented, it can be interpreted in court.
Yes.
Orengo is prosecuting the case that you are actually telling Uncle Sam, can you please help me remove this guy and take over? That is treason. I'm saying it's a question of interpretation, my friend.
Just hold on. Since Orengo is not here, and I don't know whether he would take up that.
Let's say John. Let's say lawyer John.
When you say that the deputy president is saying things that could be interpreted, why can't you deal with what he's saying? Because he knows too well there'll be an election in 5 months' time.
And that the government...
And that's what he's talking about.
Yes, the government is chaperoning people, directing people in a certain way to subvert the will of the Kenyan voter, to subvert democracy. Now, if you utter those words and you are number two, it can be well interpreted to mean you are seeking the support of a foreign power to edge out your boss and you take over. That's treason. I'm saying it's a question of interpretation. It could be wrong. Now to answer your question, when you go out, there must be some plan. You must be targeting something, you'll get some capital out of that trip. Now, let's say, even if the American government would have wanted to give Ruto some attention. The moment you say those kind of things, and remember I said them almost day one of his trip. The moment you say those kind of things, if the US government engaged you, that's why I don't believe Ababu Namamba and the rest when they are telling us that there was some engagement at the White House. If Ruto said the things he said, and then later proceed to the White House as we are being told, and the government engages him at an official level, whether closed or open door, in diplomatic circle, John, you are saying you have done diplomacy. Kenya will summon back its ambassador.
Yes.
And demand certain things from the American government. How can the deputy president say the sort of things he said about Kenya and America engages him? So America will not engage him at all. They may as well know, like you are saying, I don't know you or who, they may as well know that Ruto could win. And they will really want to deal with him, but it will not be official. You get it? Okay. So in other words, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you are William Ruto. If the intention was to benefit from that trip, you will not.
So leave out the deputy president.
Yes.
Is there any value, like even when a former prime minister used to do some visits, engage with the international?
This is the value. The value is that to be president, you must not just entrench yourself here, you must also network internationally. You must gain international acceptance. A problem Raila was suffering from in his earlier career, international acceptance. These international players have a keen interest in what goes on in all countries in the world, the big countries. And therefore, you cannot just spring from some farm somewhere, maybe in Surugoi or I don't know where you come from, and say you can be the president of a country.
You know, Sam,
it's not possible. So, what I'm saying is,
I asked you leaving the deputy president outside, now you went to...
That's where I'm going. Let me just finish.
You see, Manyora is speaking from both sides of the
No, let me finish, please.
In one,
let me finish.
Let me just say.
You take over.
In one instance, he's saying these foreign trips are not, and the American government doesn't vote in Kenya, and then he's telling us here, you need the networks. But let me say this, because they've brought up the issue of treason. I want you to answer what I'm going to say, you and Opio. When you bring up the issue of treason, in Kenya, we know of only one person who has committed treasonable offenses. He has admitted to being involved in the 1982 coup. He swore himself in as president at Uhuru Park. Before you start talking about William Ruto having committed treason, let's deal with this one who committed this crimes first. And number two, Sam, you can see that what we have always been saying, this Azimio group is about positions. It's about how did William Ruto meet when he was in the US. It is not what did William Ruto say and what is the impact to the people of Kenya. William Ruto met Kenyans. That is even if he had gone there and met the Kenyans in diaspora alone and come back, that to me is more important than even meeting the president, because we shall meet the president after the 9th of August. Okay. That one I can assure you. But now the trip to the US was key, and you can see this disturbing them. You have just shown a clip of Azimio team in Machakos. Instead of selling their agenda, instead of giving, propagating what they will do for Kenya, they are busy discussing William Ruto in an Azimio meeting. And we really want to thank them for campaigning for us for free, because in any function where you mention my candidate, even if it is negatively, you have still mentioned by his name, and they have campaigned for us. And we have not asked Azimio, we have not given them a role to play in our campaign, but they should concentrate on marketing their candidates. And there was an incident, Sam, that wasn't captured on screens, but I saw it in the clips, whereby Raila seemed to have forgotten where he was in a certain function, and had to be reminded by Junet and Joho where he was. And I think, for me, from where I sit, I think Raila and the people in Azimio should care about Raila's health first before they take him on the campaign trail, because that was very, very shocking. This I'm saying now as a Kenyan. We want a healthy competition. We want to have a competition with somebody who is in good health, and I think Raila's health should come into focus first before he continues with the campaigns.
Sam, can I just have a second? Because
Sam on the
second.